Hey, what's happening, all you beautiful people? We got another episode of The Strange Road for you. I'm your host, Mikey, and of course, as always, Bub, the co-host. How you doing, Bub?
I'm great.
Okay, great.
I'm great. Ready to rock.
This is going to be a good one, and we have Stoner the Loner in master control.
Still holding it down.
Yep, absolutely. Disbro's out on gigs this week, and wishing him all the best. Hoping he's got smooth travels all week long. But you guys can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at The Strange Road, the Facebook group. If you're here on YouTube, we're always keeping these premieres and live streams ad-free.
Yep.
Super important to us. Great way to support the show is through those super stickers and super chats. And also, if you guys want to share, you got to hit that notification bell. That's the big thing.
That's number one if you want to know what's going on and when we're going on.
If you want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And because we do release our audio versions of our episodes release at midnight every Monday, most of the time.
Yep.
And then our premieres end up in the evening. So the video versions are available in the evenings, usually around 9 p.m. So, if you're not catching our social media posts, it's always a great way to get notified. So
that's true.
We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us as always. And tonight we have another returning guest.
Yes.
Okay. Our guest tonight is a Neuropsychopharmacology PhD candidate at Maastricht University, focusing on researching the brain while under DMT inside virtual extended reality. Please welcome back the returning champ, Zeus Tipado. Zeus, what's up, brother?
Oh my gosh. What's up, everybody? How's it going? It's good to see both of you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Your outfits are fantastic. I love that t-shirt. I love that hoodie. What does that hoodie say?
This is from Lost Lands.
Yeah.
So this was a gig we did this year. I did along with Mikey and The Strange Road and Excision. And
yeah, it's a big, giant headbanger EDM festival out in Legend Valley, out in the country, this beautiful outdoor venue.
It's wild.
It's a 3-day festival that's all heavy headbanger EDM, like Excision, 12 Planet.
People in dinosaur costumes, raptor outfits,
it's all
walking around.
Themed. Yeah.
What?
YouTube it.
YouTube and
how this shirt looks, this sweater, this hoodie.
The whole
this is how the whole place looked. There are dinosaurs.
There come out there.
There's brontosauruses. There's
you
T-Rex.
Totally should.
It's wild.
When is it? When's the next vlog?
It's in
September.
The second last weekend of September.
Yep.
Every year.
So it's really good weather. It's nice camping weather
out there.
Great for rocking out all day. It's not too hot. It's
the fall in Ohio during that time is the most beautiful.
It's on point.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Late September in Ohio is so. Put on a hoodie at night.
It's the best month.
Yeah.
For sure the best month.
Yeah, man.
But it's wild.
Yeah, here in Holland, it's like pouring right now. It's like raining, almost like snowing. It's almost freezing right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you guys are quite a bit more north than we are. So
what is it like in the winter there? I mean, you get a lot of snow. Is it what?
No, bro. Snow, like ridiculous snow. Yeah, thick snow. And it stays for a pretty long time.
Yeah,
definitely cold, but I'm embracing this cold. It's really nice. It's like a nice change from California.
Yeah. Well, do you do any snow sports?
No, but I probably should because it's
man,
always
I'm telling
snowing.
You, skiing.
I got to get into something.
Snow skiing. I took it up at the age of 30. It's probably my favorite thing to do, and the only thing that gets me through winters a lot of times is snow skiing.
Yeah, it's so fun.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
the most fun.
Yeah. Tying on a little buzz, skiing, it's the best thing ever.
Nice. All right, well then maybe I'll think about it. I don't know, man. That seems like a injury waiting to happen.
But honestly, man,
if you just don't trivialize it and you do what you should to learn how to master the controls of going down a mountain, you'll be fine.
And you don't have to go down a serious run.
If you like hiking, think of skiing, even if you took the easiest green circle everywhere.
Yeah, green circles are great.
It's still, you're going through, you could be in Colorado on a green circle doing a run that'll take you 50 minutes. That you're just cruising through tree lines and
nice and slow.
You're on mountain,
oh my God.
It's like hiking without the effort. You have to stop every now and then just because your legs get tired.
Your legs get tired.
Your legs get tired from holding you up and keeping your, cutting your speed and whatever. So you can stop then and then chill, take a moment, continue skiing. Like when we skied at Keystone, We got to the backside of a mountain. We took like a double lift to get there. We never saw another person the rest of the day. It was like your own private. It's stupid. It's amazing. Like,
I didn't even know it was like that, honestly.
Yeah.
I really didn't know skiing was
yeah,
like that.
I would encourage you to at least give it one shot and really try not to get hurt. But yeah, just enjoy it.
Take lessons. Don't learn like I did. I fell 40
I know,
times. 40 times the first
The
day.
Alps are like a few hours away from here in like Switzerland, so maybe I'll go to the Alps and do some skiing.
That's
So
what I'm
jealous.
saying too. Is like you have prime location.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like when I lived in California travel nursing, and I would tell people I'm going to Big Sur, and they lived out there, and they're like, "What's Big Sur?" And I'm like, "What? Like, why?
Yeah.
You've never been? You don't even know what I'm talking about?" Like, okay, I don't get this, but
Good
Yeah.
place to take LSD is Big Sur, by the way.
oh yeah,
I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's an amazing
the
place.
Esalen Institute and Dietjens and all those weird little
Yeah.
cabins you can rent.
I stayed at. We didn't stay there. We went to Esalen a couple
Yeah,
times
it's
to
a
hit the hot
strange-
tubs at night. Dude,
Well-
hot tubs over the ocean cliffs. Like, you can Google pictures of that at Esalen, and it's just literally like they're suspended hot tubs of natural spring water over the ocean waves crashing, and you have to go at like 1 a.m. That's when they open it to the public. So you're there from like 1 to 3. It's super pitch black dark. It's just, it's an experience. It's an experience, and thankfully I've done it twice. I've had 2 opportunities.
Twice.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
bragging now. You're
I
just
know.
bragging.
Dude, it's so fun.
Well,
It's a trip. That would be a great place if you wanted to go there, and
but
Yes.
yeah, Lost
Explore.
Lands. Come to Lost Lands next year.
you should really think about it.
We do the stage
Yeah,
2.
I'm thinking about it, man.
Yeah. I mean, we do the stage 2 live stream. So our crew comes in and we have different jobs, various jobs throughout this. But I mean, you're shooting 12 hours a day. It's just like 3 days straight of
Yeah.
just bass.
Anywhere from
Base.
30 to 45,000 people. Yeah, it's impressive. Like it pops
big
up and
festival.
it's pretty rocking. I mean, it's the biggest.
You would get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
The last night
You guys
we
are
took,
like shooting what? Like, what are you guys shooting?
Shooting the stages, filming the shows,
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, we're
and then
shooting
sending that out to homes.
perform. It's called Couchlands. They have their own live stream network. They stream to TikTok and Twitch. So Excision's, he's a genius. I mean, he's an artist, but he's the creator of Lost Lands, like all the design, everything. That
Yeah,
guy's
all
the
of this,
brainchild.
all of the
behind-
gear, all of the merch, is
Yeah.
super well branded
He's
and
slick with
quality. And
Yeah. And I brought a bunch of the cam ops and Bub
is
way
my
to the
first
back
year.
at the end of the whole event on Sunday. We were done wrapping up. I was like, all right, guys, let's go into it. I take them back into the woods, and they have
great.
like 3 stages back there hidden away from these giant, massive stages that we work on. Nobody even sees them because
They're
we're
just up in
working
the
all day.
woods.
So I take them back in there, and it's just a raging party till 6, 7 in the morning. I mean, those stages
Then they had
go
that-
all night.
They had that like art installation piece that was like a fire, like a flame that was always
yeah.
going, but it was going to the music. And so like when the bass was like hitting, that
Yeah.
flame was like pulsating. So people are just laying on the ground in this like weird
I am
like
sold,
metal
man.
structure that's coming up out of the ground and like flames popping off, and you're just
It's
like,
wild.
what in the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And then somebody might walk by in a
sold.
raptor outfit, and you're like not a Walmart one. I mean,
walk
they look like a
around,
raptor,
and it's
they're in
a
these
full size.
huge latex, crazy outfits that are like Hollywood quality. I mean, it's stupid. It's stupid. It was so
I'm
much fun.
sold.
It was so awesome.
I'm sold, man.
Yep.
I'm sold. Seriously, like I have to figure out how to get out there. Like, what's the best time to come?
We're gonna remind you.
I'll figure it out.
We'll put out the alert to you.
Yeah, I know exactly where you can stay. I mean, if you want to camp and roll in, with us every day, you can do that. There's lots of ways. I mean, it's,
We can make it happen.
yeah. But dude, I want to get into everything you got going
Yeah.
on. We've been following you on Instagram, loving the videos.
Yes.
Loving the shows you've been doing on other people's podcasts.
Yeah, man, you've been busy.
Spreading the word. What is going on with Zeus Tipado? Lay it on us.
Man, so yes, dude. Thank you for those kind words. Yeah, dude, I have been out there, out here, out everywhere, just researching, really getting deep into my VR research. We built this amazing experience, this amazing VR experience. I had it I like tried the final version for the first time on Sunday, or no, sorry, last Friday. Incredible, man. Incredible. I can't wait for people to just like check it out. And yeah, and then I've been focusing on brain imaging, just getting the correct configuration of where I'm going to look at the brain, where I have been looking at the brain, places that I shouldn't have, places that I should have. And it's pretty wild, man. In order for this to be like, it hasn't been done before, to look at the brain with VR in DMT using fNIRS to look at the visual cortex. It hasn't been done before. So there's a lot of trial and error that has to be done before we go full throttle. So right now, the past few months, I've been really honing down on my technique, honing down on configurations, honing down on scripts to make sure that the blood in the brain is flowing the correct way, to make sure that we get all the details, all the measurements. And the great thing is that I'm getting so close to actually, doing it full throttle. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy because honestly, guys, like there's a huge part of this research where at first, for example, to give a person DMT inside VR, the first thing people say is that, well, why would you give a person DMT inside VR? DMT sort of floods the entire visual field. Why would you put them in VR?
Right.
So there's the reason why is because, of course, it's about placing a person inside VR for sure. That's the sort of enticing thing, but it's also about placing a person inside VR before they do DMT. That is where the really enticing stuff is, to change their visual field before, because if you can change that visual field before, if you could place them in a reality that doesn't really exist in this reality, a virtualized reality, then perhaps you can prompt certain things to happen so that they have a certain trip based on the visual information that they actually have before the trip, that they surround themselves with.
So like packing your bags, putting your things in your suitcase of what you want to hopefully occur.
Yeah, it's basically like, it's almost like prompting.
Mm-hmm.
And it like happens in psychedelics all the time. We have integration therapists that prompt people to have certain trips. You have trip sitters that prompt people to have certain trips. You even have in psychedelic therapy, you have people that, construct these beautiful audio playlist of sounds and whatever to try to guide a person's trip.
Sure.
That's so the idea of prompting isn't that out of the ordinary. However, the idea of visually prompting a person is seen as almost, I wouldn't say impossible, but incredibly difficult. And that's where my research is. Something that is seen as so incredibly difficult that perhaps people see it as like a scientific impossibility. But I do not see it as an impossibility. I see it as an incredible challenge that has been taking me a long time, a very long time, guys, every single day. But I can say that not only is it possible, but I've done it. I've done pilots, and those pilots are effective.
Wow. Man, you've been busy.
That makes me think of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So if you can do that with VR, are we having that done as well in just reality, right? Like, either advertising or whatever you want to say. I mean, right? Like that's what it makes me think of as my reality. I mean, now if we can do that in another reality, what's to say it's not happening in this reality?
Yes, you brought up a very important point. So there's a scientist. He passed away, but I think he's from Canada. Charles Hebb, Hebb. He was a fantastic scientist, but he dealt with a bunch of like rats. Like that was his stuff. He also like developed all these great theories, but he used to deal with rats, and he would test rats every single day. And he was always in the lab, so he actually brought back some rats to his house, and he's like, "Oh, just get you guys as pets, and could have a pet." And he's like, "Oh, I'll just build a cool little area for these rats and everything." And then he's like, "Oh, I'll build a nice." So he built a cool little area for the rats to play with, colorful, lots of fun things to play with, social interactions, right. Cool stuff. And then he's like, "All right, well, I'm going to bring some of these rats in, and we're going to do some research because that's what we do. I'm going to bring some of these rats in," and he brought some of those rats that were at home that had this sort of enhanced experience, this enhanced visual experience, enhanced environment. He brought them in, and then he put them through testing, and then he saw that those rats that had this enriched environment, enriched visual environment, enriched visual landscape, that those rats actually performed better at tasks than other rats that were caged up in these sort of like white cages, these lab cages. So then he's like, you know what? Then he developed this idea, this theory that's been tested of enriched environment, where enriched environment is that actually just your environment, your environment being colorful, your environment being safe, tranquil, that by itself can cause a cascade of rebuilding brain cells, of increasing your ability to recover, of thinking better, of even like having enhanced or sort of, enhanced sensory perception, in the sense that, you see higher contours, you see higher colors. So that's in rats. The question is, does it work in actual humans? So there was some research that happened about 20 years ago where they had people that were like stroke people had strokes. I don't want to call them victims. People that had strokes, and they were sort of patients, that they were dealing with the whole sort of coming back to normality, basically, of strokes. And he found, so they had people that were in an enriched environment, they, colorful environment, they had things to do, they had, cool things to listen to, a very enriched visual landscape. And they found that these people recovered faster than people that didn't have this enriched visual landscape. So interesting. Yeah. Now
we got to feed the mind.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, like we look at where we grew up, like lots of things to climb, things to get into.
I was just thinking about inside my house.
Just your house when you walk through my house, wonderland. Sure, it's strange.
Well, and not only that,
Bub has a really unique.
I literally
setup.
I thought if I had a comparison, it's like Pee Wee Herman's house. Of like, I just as a kid was like, I'm gonna have something like that, and I don't literally have like the Rube Goldberg devices, but the pictures hanging in our house, the whatever hanging around, the artwork. Most of it is either from our trips, travels, etc. So I'm walking through a scrapbook of my own stuff. My memories are re-enhanced every time I see that monkey on the wall when I walk down the little capuchin. We took that picture. We were on the beach. It reintegrates that moment every time I walk by and see it. Like I think about it much deeper than just like, oh, it's a cool picture of a capuchin, but it's from Bed Bath & Beyond or, Home Goods store, like that doesn't do anything. That doesn't have a reference to me. And so we've kind of built a small arc of a re-enhance your own life while you're living it type
He has
thing.
a house plant that literally vines throughout the entire first floor. Like literally, these guys in the ceiling of his house is plants.
That's great.
Because he keeps taking the leads and
it's so crazy,
pulling them up further and further. And
it's a pothos, but I mean, it's like I've got it swirling a room in our back room in our little sunroom.
It's extreme.
You look up and it's just a little canopy of leaves, and it's gotten crazy. But again, to that enriching of your environment, what you're saying, that We grew up in an enriched environment and things that we could do or had access to or be able to explore. But like my house growing up, we didn't have a lot of like just things on the walls to look at or knickknacks, like my mom like wanting to clean or something like that. You're just not going to have it. So like she would never do stuff like that because it's from a stance of like, then I've got to clean around it. So like, I just don't care. I'm like, I might not dust it as much, but I'm going to have things on shelves and walls and pictures. And I'm going to have that visual stimulus. I need that.
Like,
I want to see
like your Lost Lands hoodie.
This is perfect. Yes.
Now, Zeus, you probably know better than me, but you always hear about that study where the rats are, the cocaine studies where, they'll stop eating, they'll stop, caring about the community. All they'll do is go back for more cocaine. And then another guy comes along and does a research and gives these rats an enriched environment, gives them things to do, gives them toys, and they set out the cocaine. And the rat's like, nah. Does it a couple times and is like,
they turned it down after a while?
Turned it down. And they weren't sitting there overdosing themselves.
Interesting.
So I don't know if that's like an urban legend or if you've ever heard of that.
So, I mean, really, the thing is cocaine, it works on dopamine receptors. And dopamine is something that can be activated, not just with cocaine, but you could actually activate your dopamine receptors via playing video games.
Yeah.
Or,
slot machines.
Slot machines. Anything that brings you enjoyment and that can be repeated activates dopamine receptors. So perhaps what was happening was that these, rodents were looking at cocaine and they're like, yeah, cocaine's fun, but there's other ways to activate those same receptors.
Yeah.
And that perhaps that activation is longer sustained than just that quick bump of a dopamine hit, as in cocaine.
Yeah. But back to the virtual reality that you're putting on the goggles before you go into a session.
Yeah.
Now, what type of landscapes are we seeing? Is this like completely made up fantastical realities of that's my video wise? What are we looking at here?
Sure.
Yeah. So that's a fantastic question. And the enriched environment. So the question is, why VR? Is VR enough? Can VR even deliver an enriched environment? That's really the ultimate question. And as of, I think, 2008, we have the answer. And this one scientist named Hoffman, not the same Hoffman who made LSD, obviously,
Albert.
but a different Hoffman. Not him, but a different Hoffman who does VR research. He had a group of subjects, and they were veterans that were dealing with very painful burn therapy. They were burned in battle and they have to do like skin grafting, very painful, very horrific stuff. Shout out to all the vets, by the way. But so he looked at these people, and of course it's painful. It's tremendous. It's like traumatic. And he said, okay, what if we place these people in a very cold environment, but virtually cold? Let's give them a VR experience where they're walking around and there's penguins, there's snowmen, there's snowfall, there's snowballs. They can like throw snowballs at these penguins and it's icy glaciers everywhere. So he did that. He built this thing called Snow World, I believe it was called, early 2000s. And he placed these people inside of this world. And come to find out, the people that were in this virtualized icy environment had an incredible reduction in pain. Like tremendous reduction in pain just by changing their environment with virtual reality.
Wow.
Keep in mind, this is like 2005, so the VR back then isn't even as close as what we have right now.
Grainy and kind of pixelated,
Pixelated, grainy, yeah. So even in that very basic, primitive virtual reality, that tech was enough to essentially trick the brain into believing that this reality was reality.
I see what you're saying.
And they started healing because of just the sensation that their brain is saying, hey, this is like, when you hurt your ankle, you ice your ankle down. And, it reduces the inflammation and begins to heal or what? I mean, is that what we're talking about
here?
Well,
like a burn victim. So it's painful
it's
because
like cool.
You think of like getting road rash. You get a road rash, road burn, you fall and scrape off that top layer of skin or however far down it goes. It's hot.
Yeah, dude.
So I worked on a burn unit before as a travel nurse. And you go down to a certain room, like the trolley room where you have to bathe and like take care of like the skin grafts and this and that. And I mean, when you're dealing with somebody that's burnt up to like 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% of their body, like that's a large swath of work. And, what I was going to say, though, I think is interesting is, so you're doing this virtual reality to kind of prime the brain to get them into that state to help them get there, right? It makes me think, because it sounds astounding, but we've talked so much in all the different episodes and years of how mental imaging, mental projection, that you were saying it earlier, relaxing your fingertips and this and relaxing your whole body, but trying to help somebody go through that, right? By just saying, we're going to do a mental exercise. I want you to think about throwing snowballs at penguins and this and that. Perhaps if people could literally get to that and follow that, we could duplicate it on some level, right? But I think it shows such a proof in the pudding of going, we've built this virtual reality where now that's in essence what we're doing. We are translating this. We want you to think about these things to get your body and mind to release this response, right? To prep you for it, right? Is that kind of
a primer?
A primer, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think people would be surprised at how incredibly easy it is to trick the brain into believing that something that isn't real was actually real. There was a study that happened in 2018, I believe, where you had people that were like addicts of like cocaine, methamphetamine, and they would put a VR headset on them and they would place them in a virtualized setting that had stuff like razors, that had powder on the table, that had like all these sort of drug paraphernalia items everywhere. And just based on this virtualized drug setting, they had cravings of these drugs that showed up in the brain. So the idea of VR tricking the brain, that's already been established. The tech that we have currently is enough. Now, the true question is, can we prime the brain with VR so that we can have an actual certain experience? Or perhaps we can shift an actual experience with VR before and during. Now, that is interesting. That's an interesting thing. And what would it be? What would you show them? What am I showing them?
Yes, that's the ultimate question. And it's interesting. There's a really good physicist named David Glowacki, and he's also researching VR and not psychedelics yet, but he's researching VR. He's a very good friend of mine. I'll be going to his university in Spain to talk to him in February. But he brilliantly had this really dope study that came out, I think, last year, where, so obviously with psychedelics, there's this thing of like ego dissolution, where you dissolve yourself and you become one with this sort of bigger thing, right? Which is a very, sort of valid thing. So how do you sort of make that happen in VR? So what he did was he had people with VR headsets on. He built a place, a sort of virtualized place. People had VR headsets on across the planet. So it wasn't like they were in the same room. One guy had a headset on like Idaho, other guy had a headset on like Iceland or whatever, but they were still inside the virtual area, that's
right?
Cool.
And it's so cool. VR tech is ridiculous. So they were all in this room, but you've seen VR, how in VR you see a person that's like a person, but they're like virtualized. They have the body, they have the shoulders, they have the arms. Yeah, they're like some like blocky virtualized avatar, but you could still discern a physical structure of a person, a physical head, shoulders, and everything. So he's like, okay, yeah, that's cool, but let's change that. So instead of having these virtualized shapes of a body that we associate with a person, a head, a shoulders, and arms, let's change that. Let's have people be this sort of cloud of particles where you recognize a person, but not as a human, as this amorphous, cloudy particle thing.
Okay.
And then when you get close to a person, you don't touch them, you become them, you merge with them, because your cloud of particles are merging with someone else's clouds of particles.
Oh,
so you become, you like merge with people. You merge with them. And that experience by itself was so powerful that people claimed that, not even claimed, they said that they had almost like a psychedelic trip where they, like, after the whole VR session, they were crying because it was so tremendous. It was so potent. It was such a tremendous experience to see a person and then merge with a person. And all that's in VR without psychedelics.
It's wild.
It's blowing my mind right now, man. Jesus. Got me in trance.
Yeah.
Cloud people.
Blowing my mind. Cloud people. But hey, it makes sense though. It's like one of those.
Totally does.
How can we really reimagine this? And again, why do we have to play by the same rules?
Yeah.
If you're making it up, yeah, do it however you want to. I love that.
So are these things that you read about, all these different examples, I mean, that's part of your journey with kind of establishing your own methodologies, and is that something that you've recently uncovered, these other VR studies?
So it's pretty wild. The guy that I just told you about, David Glowacki, who's a physicist in Spain, I read his paper earlier this year, and I was blown away. The one that I just told you about, the whole group VR.
Yeah.
I've read it and I was blown away by it. And then fast forward to this summer, I was in Berlin. I was like on a panel about psychedelics and visual stuff. And it was this really cool conference called Insight, really dope stuff. But the final day, I was just sitting there because my friend was presenting and I wanted to support her. And then I just sort of sat there. And then I saw this guy get up and he's talking about the same study that I read. And then I realized, no, this is the guy. This is the guy that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the guy. Like it took a little bit to put together. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, this dude is the guy. So afterwards, I talked to him like, yo, what's up? How's it going? Fast forward to a few hours after that, his presentation, like around 11 p.m., we're partying in Berlin together. Partying in Berlin, meaning that you go hard in Berlin. That's all I'm gonna say.
Not bad.
You go hard, but we like end up partying until like 10 a.m.
Jesus.
And we're talking. We're literally on scooters cruising around Berlin at 10 a.m. going to a second party that we were invited to. And we're talking about physics. We're talking about VR. We're talking about psychedelics. And in this evening, in this conversation that we had, like, I was so inspired and I developed so many ideas and concepts to incorporate in my research. And he's a good friend now. We're friends now. So it's important to understand that good ideas can come from anywhere. And you have to be open to good ideas and open to any ideas. And then you have to incorporate these ideas. So yes, what his research definitely inspired some of the stuff that I have incorporated into my own research. And we're actually like working together now on this project. So it's really, really cool. And the fact that I have that guy, David Glowacki, WhatsApp text away is just
Cool.
Mind blowing.
That's amazing.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I mean, you would think if anything in science, psychedelic researchers would work together. I mean, it's kind of got to be inherently built in. You know, you hear about people that are kind of battling, and you have rivals within your
You would think, yeah.
your certain scholarly pursuits or your university, but I'm sure that open-minded. If you're a psychedelic researcher, I'm sure that, you know,
It depends. Who knows? You might have very strong, like, you might not think the same way about how it all works. You know what I mean?
well, that's true.
Listen, actually, you know what? Yes, you would think it would be very open, and it's pretty wild for an entire field of science that's built in ego dissolution. Surprisingly, you have some pretty big egos in psychedelics.
All right, that's where I was getting. That's where I was trying to get to.
Too funny.
Yeah.
It's just like anything else, man.
Well, okay, but I think because it's like in that gamut, it's like, so you got Zeus, you got whoever, and you all got your theories and paths. So it is like, well, Zeus might think he's on the right path, and the other researcher might think they're on the right path. And that's why it's very important, though, to get the data, to get the research done, to do the due diligence, right? To do the work, to really spell it out and figure out where we're going with it, I think is part of it. And even then, we still might not know, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like people really can't steal your, like, people can't steal your ideas, but they could steal your direction. And with psychedelics, it's such a, the field is wide open. So a lot of people have cornered certain directions of research. People say that I've cornered the entire field of VR and psychedelics, which I'll take it. I don't think anyone is doing what I'm doing, and I talk about it very openly.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 2 weeks ago, I saw that the University of Zurich they want to get into psychedelic and VR research.
Imagine that.
Imagine that, yeah. From people that I actually talked to when I first began my research. So I don't look at that like they're taking my idea. They perhaps are taking the direction of my idea, because the direction is there's very, very valid stuff there. I take it as I'm happy that I've inspired an entire field of research, an entire line of research. I don't take it like you're biting my style. I don't have time to do that, because I have so many, like, there's not a single person on this planet that will achieve what I'm achieving with my research, because it would take so much effort to get to the point where I'm at right now, and right. I don't think anyone would do that. I don't think.
I was about to say, you blazed the trail
to get up to speed to where you are. It's going to be, and to have the right person that wants to. That's, a former writer of High Times and other psychedelics, someone that's been in the community, if you will.
Yeah.
It's a huge commitment. Like, you gotta have somebody that's who's like Zeus.
But again, he took the time and effort and initiative. Like, you can't fault him for that. And anybody else that goes down that path, maybe somebody else would have got there eventually, but they didn't, right? So anybody else that shows up, they go, this path was carved by Zeus, and Zeus is already down this road this far. Now, they might run and go past you on that path because you've already set it out there, but again, you kind of like laid that groundwork for others to even consider it and take their time to investigate it, right? So it would be tough to catch you because you are so far gone. It's like me trying to catch Jordan on playing guitar, my brother. He's light years ahead of me. Like, it doesn't matter how long I play guitar, I'm never going to get as good as him. It's just a reality of life. So I think there are some of those immutables. Now, somebody else might come along and put, another piece into the chain.
And that's what you can hope for there.
Hopefully help
somebody
advance it.
builds onto your work. Yeah.
When you've hit it directly on the head. It's about, you have to look, it's important to look at this. People tend to look at psychedelic research in a very temporal frame of like the next year, the next 2 years, the next 5 years. No, it's about developing a path for humanity to go towards, so that in the future we can really look at things like the visual experience, how that can be changed, how sensory perception overall can be created without actual sensory stimuli. For example, it'd be amazing if my research goes down a path which develops a way for humans to live extended sensory lives, basically. So let's say, for example, you don't have the ability to go to Dubai or the Maldives or something, But if we could potentially activate your brain so that your brain activates as if you are seeing these things and experiencing these things, then that would be fantastic. So I think that really is the ultimate path of psychedelics. And if I can inspire that or set forth the path in the next 100 years that we could develop, entire sensations, entire sensory sensations that go beyond VR, that perhaps even incorporate psychedelics so that our brain gets into a certain state in which we actually adopt these sensory sensations and sensory stimuli better, that would be great. That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, me personally, put me up on like a virtual Machu Picchu, or
that'd be interesting.
On top of the pyramid, or somewhere where you want to get into a state of mind before you jump into a serious endeavor like vaping DMT. Wow. Put me in a place that is heavenly before I go in. I don't know. That's what comes to my mind. Like, put me up in some Mayan pyramid or something.
Yeah. So and I'm happy you brought that up, because one thing about virtual reality, or there's a few things, but one thing is that it allows us to place ourselves in environments that are impossible, that are absolutely impossible. Yet, if you're in VR, your brain can't really discern between whether this is fake and whether it's actually happening.
Yeah.
As we've talked about the couple papers that I talked about earlier. So that right there, just that simple fact that we can. So okay, you already understand that psychedelics are so dependent on setting. Mm-hmm. Setting is such a huge thing in an actual trip, and setting is the environment that you're in. Of course, if you take LSD and you're in a very sort of shady environment, a warehouse that's dingy, that's grimy, you're probably not gonna have a good experience,
No. Or you showed up at UPS and you took the wrong, ibuprofen gel cap that morning. Like, damn it, it's gonna be a long day.
So just right there tells you that for some reason, we don't know why, but it is that psychedelics are so dependent on the setting, incredibly dependent on the setting. So if we can understand this idea of setting precisely, scientifically, then perhaps we can build optimal settings that are impossible to achieve in reality. But these optimal settings can happen with VR, with virtualizing our setting, to have the optimal experience of an actual trip, of an actual psychedelic.
Man. So are we talking about like mandala visuals? Are we talking about like these kind of repeating worlds, or what are those called?
Oh, Mandelbrot sets?
Yeah. I mean, what are we looking at here? I'm just trying to, or
yeah.
Do you guys already have experience.
Or is that like proprietary? Can we not go to that?
I don't know if I'm.
Is that IP? Is that intellectual property?
Tell me if we've overstepped.
So no, I can tell you that number one, yes, we've built something that only we have.
Wow.
And I experienced it for the first time last Friday.
Ooh.
And, I was blown away that it was better than what I thought it would be. So what we're doing right now is, okay, let me go back before. So before I actually had a really good research. I just finished a dope research, a really amazing research where I asked people about their DMT experience. And I had about 580 people, and it's actually still going on. It's still going on. I'll send you the link. But I developed an entire scale for people to assess the visual experiences of their most significant DMT trip. And like every possible visual disturbance, visual modulation is included in this 75 question survey. And you assess whether it happened in the beginning, the peak, or the end of the trip. And you could say 0 to 100. And what is one of these questions? Okay, well, when I was experiencing DMT, it felt like someone or something came from within me out, for example. That's a very common thing that people have when they're. Also, I saw something that was so infinite that I couldn't tell where it began or end.
Sure.
These are like very, very sort of common things that we see in the DMT experience. So I gave this questionnaire, this survey study to 580 something people, and I got quantified data on the DMT experience. And based on this data, and based on how the brain works, based on where I've developed our team, not only myself, I got to give props to Bettina Sorger, Kim Cooper, John Ray Makers. We have elements of the brain mapped. So what does that mean? I'll just tell you guys. I'll just tell you guys. I don't care. I may get in trouble, but I don't care. Yeah. So we have discovered through our research that we can tell what's happening in a trip, but there's 4 factors that we can determine. We can actually see. Okay, this happened, and this part of the brain was active. Now, what are these things? Number 1, we can see if a person is tripping in black and white or in color. We can see that brain activity.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Number 2, we can see if a person saw a face in the trip. We can see this very distinct brain activity. If a person sees a face or recognizes a face, whether it's an entity, whether it's their cousin, whether it's an alien, we can see this activity correlate in the brain. That's number 2.
That's wild.
I'm getting speechless here. This is amazing.
Number 3, we can see if a person is tripping and they're looking at something that's going by really fast or not at all, just sort of static. We can see distinct brain activity. And number 4, which is the coolest thing, or they're all cool, but this is the 4, is that we did this thing called polar angle mapping, where if a person is experiencing some incredible thing on the left side of their visual field, the left side, or the right side, or the top, or the bottom, or the top left, or the bottom right, we can see where a person is tripping in their visual field.
Jesus.
That's so crazy.
And this is just sounds like the start of findings.
This took a long time to find, but yes.
I would assume, though, it's probably even help crop up more questions, though, as you go, holy cow, we could map out what block they're seeing this in their cardinal field of direction. Like, holy cow, what can we go to next? So, like, that's where it's going to get exciting.
Seeing
I think
faces, that kind of freaked me out a little bit.
The face is one.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've
heard
about some faces. Like,
so you're saying it's somebody, they might know them or they might not. It doesn't matter, but you know that they're seeing a face.
Right. We can't tell if the face they're seeing is a face they remember, they like know.
Right.
Yet.
So is it just showing up on like a map of the brain in real time where it's, you know, kind of like you see in the movies where there's like a yellow and a red.
Well, this is where they're putting the cap on. That's
right. So you've seen the cap on my Instagram. You've probably seen it before. That's functional near-infrared spectroscopy. That's the imaging that I use. That's the tech that I use to look at the brain.
Yep.
And the cool thing about this is that you've heard of fMRI, right? The fMRI, the giant machine. Yeah. So both techs, they share this thing called a bold response, blood oxygen level dependent. And what that basically means is that you're looking at the brain, the blood in the brain, and you're looking at two things. You're looking at whether the blood in the brain has oxygen or if it doesn't have oxygen. Deoxy, oxy. That's sort of how you look at the brain with fNIRS. Now, with an fMRI, the problem is you get inside, you can't move your head. You're stuck because there's a giant, thing, and it's pretty wild stuff. But with fNIRS, with the cap that you saw that I had on my head, you can move your head. And the reason why is because it's a different type of tech. So it uses, this is so wild what I'm about to tell you. So fNIRS uses near infrared light. So it shoots photons of light in your skull that goes to your brain. And based on how these photons bounce off the blood in your brain, it can tell if the blood has oxygen or if it doesn't have oxygen, based on how it bounces off the iron in your brain. That's how fine of a calculation it is.
That's crazy.
So with this tech, number one, we can put a person in VR. Because now you can move your head, you can do stuff, you can move around.
Right.
You can still see this brain activity happening.
So are you moving away from the MRI? Or is that just more of a deep look? Is it, the NIRS cap is, we'll go here and then we'll go there if we need to go look deeper at it.
Yeah, so you hit it right on the head. So fMRI, the cool thing about that is that you can actually go really deep in the brain. Mm-hmm. You can really look deeply in the brain, into the thalamus, into the periaqueductal gray, into the cingulate cord, really deep cortical
and you can make those slices, super, super thin so that you can really. Yep.
Yeah, you can really get deep. But the problem with fNIRS is that the tech is near infrared light. So you can only look at the sensory areas of the brain, the visual cortex, the auditory cortex, which is important, obviously, when you're tripping, because when you're tripping, it's obviously your brain, the sensory areas of your brain are super active because you're seeing stuff, you're hearing stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's the good part. We can penetrate the sensory areas of the brain, but we can't go deep with the thalamus or the hypothalamus or all that great stuff. Yeah. So it has its limitations.
Yeah.
For sure.
So can I ask, based off of that, what would be something that, say, you found with the cap? You know, you're doing the preliminary, and then you go, hey, okay, we found this. How do we go deeper on the fMRI and really investigate that? Or do you have any kind of instance that you're allowed or able to share about that, of kind of sussing out that process?
For sure. So there's a fantastic neuroscientist named Matt Walls. Shout out to Matt Walls. He plays guitar.
Nice.
Maybe at Imperial College London, but he works with fMRI. And I saw him at a conference in France earlier this year. And I was, I followed him on Twitter. He's a very cool guy. We've been talking for a pretty long time. It was my first time, meeting him, talking to him.
Yeah.
So we had a good conversation. And I'm like, yo, Matt, is it possible to look at the sort of surface cortical region areas that we can see with fNIRS, the top layer of the brain, and based on this top layer of the brain, the activity that's happening, is it possible to understand what's happening deeper in the brain based on this activity at the top? And he's like, yeah, it's possible. And it's this thing called thalamocortical circuits. So thalamus is deep in the brain. Cortical regions are at the top of the brain. There's correlations between what happens in the top and what happens deeper in the brain. They're called thalamocortical circuits. You got to be skilled, bro. You have to be like a freaking genius to figure this out. But it's possible to determine what's happening deeper in the brain based on what's happening in the top part of the brain. Yes. So am I moving away from fMRI? I can't use fMRI because I'm using VR.
Yeah.
I'm using virtual reality.
Yeah.
And in virtual reality, you have to move your head. You have to, immerse yourself. You have to be in this virtualized reality,
Yeah.
And you can't do that with fMRI.
You can't stick somebody tripping in one of those things. Probably wouldn't be,
So you can, but they have to be very still.
They gotta hold still.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I see. Yep.
It's a tough ask though, because any MRI machine is still loud, right? Like, so it's still just not a great experience of trying to get like.
How many of those have you been a part of?
MRIs?
Yeah.
Personally, myself having them,
Yeah.
I've had a few.
like as a nurse.
Oh yeah, I've helped. Yeah, a lot of sedation cases and stuff like that when people like really are uncomfortable going into a metal tube that is really loud, and it's like the scene from The Exorcist when they take that girl and she's getting all. I mean, it's how loud they're just like crack, crack, bang, bang, bang. Like it's not fun, and they're like, okay, here's a warm blanket. Like, make sure you don't have any metal in your pockets.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
Yeah, that's important too. Make sure you don't have any metal in your pocket because it's like a giant magnet. And there's actually a story of a person that went into an fMRI machine. They thought they had a silicone butt plug, but it was a metal butt plug.
Oh, Jesus.
I think I saw this on Twitter.
So yeah, when they went in, it was like, they said it was like a rail gun.
Oh my God.
Bro. Watch a video of somebody walking into an MRI and they'll take a metal chair or something and watch that thing suck that out of their hands. Like,
oh, wow.
Like they pull with like lots of force. Like,
damn.
Yeah,
it's just it's a huge magnet. Yeah.
It's a huge magnet. Yeah. The last time I went inside one, somehow at our lab, we have like one of the biggest fMRI machines on the planet.
Wow.
9 Tesla fMRI machine, which is like insane. I think there's like maybe like 3 or 4 on the planet. Maybe it could be more.
Right.
It's insane. But I went into a 7.4 Tesla fMRI machine, which is very, very intense. Very intense. And yeah, man, I just did that just for because we're always sort of testing stuff with our lab, and hey, can I use your brain for the day? So I'm like, yeah, sure, why not?
I wish I lived nearby. I would love to come in and be a subject.
Dude, yeah, I went inside this giant 7.4 Tesla machine, and bro, it's like you're like on a tray. You can't move. You get like restrained. Your head's sort of in this thing. they put these things on your ear so that you won't get bothered by the sound.
Yeah.
And then you get like sort of like launched slowly in a tray. But the thing is, the like magnetism is so intense when you first get in that when you're in the tray and you're going in the fMRI machine, your sort of vestibular sensations are so intense that you don't feel like you're going in. It feels like you're like sort of like spinning around.
That's so weird.
Yeah, because the like magnetism in your brain just sort of really like I guess like adapting this like high magnetic field that it's like, but then you get used to it and you're fine.
The magnet, is it like interacting with the kind of heat and the energy that your body's putting out, or
definitely, I mean, I don't know enough about an MRI to really speak on it deeply. I just, the concept and how it does it with a magnet, et cetera, of how it penetrates you by throwing out those magnetic waves, basically, right, and making that signal bounce back. And
so what's happening? It's pretty clever. It's really looking at the actual iron in your blood. Hemoglobin. Your hemoglobin has iron, and it's just looking at this sort of field, this attraction of iron and magnetism, and it sees what's happening in your brain.
Never knew that.
Based on that.
It reconstructs you. And then what we were saying earlier is about slicing is think of like taking a ham at a deli and you could slice thick or thin slices. So if you go to an MRI or a CT machine, the doctors, when I used to work, they'd be, I want them at this level or this level. And I don't even remember the increments anymore, but they can get them down to like millimeters, centimeters thin. So like they can go through you looking down like by slice by slice.
Like an ice core.
Like millions of slices of you of like this way.
Yeah.
So if they need to look right here or right there or right there or right, it can get very specific. So in a very fine-tuned device like that or machine, like you get even better, readouts and data. And so that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's super
exciting,
cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, brain imaging technology is wild, man. I'm fortunate enough to like I said, man, I'm around these people that are like, just, I don't know, man, like geniuses. Like I don't feel like I'm the smartest person in the room by far whenever I'm in the lab, bro. I'm just blown away. And also, I gotta say, I'm like, I want to say this as well. This is very important. The future of psychedelic research is women, dude. Women are crushing the game right now when it comes to the greatest setups, the greatest, research. In our like lab alone, we have Natasha Mason, who's a straight up genius at her research. She's looking at glutamate in the brain. We have Aline Hagen, which is finding ADHD can be reduced with psychedelics. Catherine Legg, which is looking at synthetic cannabis and fMRI. Lily, which is she's the first person to ever do VR and psychedelic research. So I'm surrounded by like very, very like brilliant women, and I really believe that like that's definitely the future of psychedelic research.
We would love.
That's cool as hell.
Stoner did mention, we had a conversation, we were kind of talking about this episode, and we talked about, hey, let's hit Zeus up and see if there's anybody else in this field that he knows that would
wants a platform to come on to and talk.
Yeah, if it's just any of those women that you
put the word out to
about, would we would be happy to have anybody that's looking to get their research out.
Yeah. Like I said, give them a platform to get out and just talk and get their voice heard. And like I said, I think it's going to keep growing, right? The interest and the expansion of this field. I'm sure if you look at the trends of it, it's growing rapidly.
Well, just look at all the for-profit companies and the research firms.
I don't even.
It's crazy
from that end, but I mean, from like
the weed rush. That's like old news. The new rush is psychedelic companies. Like that's the new gold rush.
Well, this is an area that's been needed to be studied since Leary was doing it, and then it got shut down, and and it's slowly coming back. Like this is a huge gap in our history of understanding. People were still doing it for decades, right? But you can't get good data on it. So it's like all it did was hinder everything for that long.
Psychedelic use in America never stopped.
No.
from the 60s. People have been tripping all the way through till now.
Yeah.
Dude, you brought up a fantastic point about like since Timothy Leary, like the dude was a professor at Harvard, right? And he got kicked out of Harvard because then Nixon said that he was the most dangerous person in the world, everything. But
propaganda. Also,
after Timothy Leary, psychedelic research kind of died off. Like even in the 50s, there was some research that was happening in America, in Tokyo as well. And then ever since Leary, it stopped. And it stopped, and it was about to start up in the 80s. It was getting very close. And then Ronald Reagan had this campaign, this DARE campaign, just say no and all this stuff.
Oh my God, that was us in fourth grade.
That was us, man.
Fourth or fifth grade.
The Gipper. The Gipper. We were DARE graduates.
Gipper, so just imagine, so not even imagine, he basically just an entire generation of would-be researchers were just stifled. Like the whole, he prevented an entire generation of would-be scientists from looking at psychedelics based on this propaganda stuff. So really, the psychedelic field right now, it's very behind.
Oh yeah,
very behind.
Yeah,
and it feels like Reagan in that DARE campaign, the Just Say No and all that stuff, was the culprit.
Wow.
And meanwhile, they're funding operations in Nicaragua with massive amounts of CIA cocaine,
or they're dosing Johns and MK Ultra programs,
fake crack rock that they brought up during the White House.
They're giving them LSD up in Canada and at other different places. The CIA was.
Just stop.
So that was the thing, though. I think they realized, like, wow, this is powerful stuff, and we need to research it, but nobody else should be researching it. So we're going to put it in these clandestine programs and research it in very nefarious ways. But at a broader scale, I think it's just something we don't think about. All drugs are illegal
unless we're the ones bringing them in.
Well,
that's what it is. They don't want you to buy the competition's drugs. You want to buy the black ops, the black ops funded drugs. And they're all working. They were all working with the cartels. They were working with General Noriega from Panama. They had those lines. I mean, Barry Seal, the whole story, the governor of Arkansas.
I just watched
at the
that
time.
movie the other day.
Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas. That's where that airport was, Mina. Bill Clinton knew all about it. His brother Roger. All those guys were connected into that airport and that airline company that was up front. It's like,
wild.
He gets caught at the end and the governor rings the phone and Tom Cruise is like, hey, every one of you guys, just let me go. You all have a Cadillac. They're like, yeah, right. You're done. You're going to burn in hell. And he's like, all right. All of a sudden the phone rings, takes it. It's the governor. It's Bill Clinton on the line. She walks out, uncuff him. He's free to go. And they're like, what? He's like, should have taken the caddy. That's how that movie ends. I mean, so
what is that? What is that?
American Made. Yep, it's on Netflix right now. If you have Netflix,
what is it called?
American Made. Yep. It's the Tom Cruise plays the part of Barry Seal and how he.
And sorry for spoiling that, but it's been out for like 10 years. So if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry.
It's already past spoiler alert.
It's a wild story. It's kind of in that same line of like, because they all kind of circle back to the drug routes of like Escobar and through those lines.
It's not the complete ending, but it's a pretty big part of it. Yeah. But anyways, sidetracking.
Yeah.
Back to your T-shirt. First of all, let's shout out the T-shirt. American Civil Liberties Union, and
I love it. And it says
the war on drugs is bullshit. There we go. Full circle.
ACLU, thank you. Established in 1920.
But it's all about targeting.
I love it.
Thought. Really, when you're talking about
thought control,
psychedelics especially, it's not necessarily about the drug and the effects and what it's doing to society. It's about, oh damn, people have some serious, too many ideas they're going to start getting wise to all the bullshit we're doing and this corrupt, banking government, banking cartels and all these things where, taxes are through the roof and people have, it's just, it's not a good thing to keep things the way they are. So
it's not going to keep the status quo.
But we're breaking through that right now.
Bread and circus is a better method, right?
Yeah. Like, isn't it like wild how the same substances that we were told was going to make you a,
glass of orange juice.
Denizen, like a glass of orange juice, denizen, loser.
That's gonna just scar in life. You're going to be living on the streets, whatever.
Living on the streets, Those same drugs are right now the drugs that are showing potential for decreased depression, decreased anxiety, increased happiness. How wild is that? You almost want to say that like that it was all on purpose in the sense that
it's all projection.
It's all projection.
Nixon's chief of staff admitted it on his deathbed.
It's all projection.
That the war on drugs was about persecuting black people and hippies.
Race, yes.
Period.
Factual.
They made the drugs illegal so they couldn't get them for their ideas. So they got them for the drugs they were using. That's a quote.
That's a wild catch-22
You can look that up.
That's neat. It's very disturbing that it's like
he was not on board with any of it. He always felt bad.
Well, it made people question the war efforts, especially like nobody wants to go to war if you're on,
we were getting
mushrooms
whipped.
or LSD.
There was no winning that war,
that
and they kept it going, knowing for 4 or 5 years into the 70s, people don't realize that like it went right into the mid 70s. We were still in Vietnam.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because they illegalized all the drugs. And then all that whole movement just, all burn out.
Yeah, it's a big psyop, I feel like, after a while, right? And it's funny what Zeus is saying, too. Like, you get rid of some of these things, maybe you take care of a lot of, like, depression and anxieties if we just had... Maybe that's what we're missing in the world, and that's why it doesn't feel as happy sometimes, because we're keeping things like this from coming in and expanding that happiness. So, why can't we raise that vibrational energy of the planet a little bit higher?
So, it's important to look at the drugs that humanity has allowed to accept.
Absolutely.
For example, caffeine. I mean, there's a Starbucks on every corner.
Yep, I had it today.
Caffeine's a drug.
Yes, sir.
It's a drug that our society has accepted. You look at tobacco.
Yep.
It's so incorporated in our entire society that we at jobs we have breaks to smoke tobacco, to smoke weed. To smoke cigarettes. I wish we had.
Pretty awesome company.
Hey, pretty soon maybe here in Ohio. Who knows?
But actually yes. But look at caffeine, man. Like some people literally can't get out of bed until they have their caffeine. They don't function without their caffeine. That's called an addiction.
Yeah, you're damn right.
I mean,
you're right.
Sure. Quick story. When I was on vacation with my family this last week, there was one day where we were just traveling all day. It was like, get up and we had to go. All of a sudden, 4 o'clock rolled around. I didn't drink coffee today. My head is killing me.
Oh, the headaches.
Borderline migraine. I was like, oh my God, this is terrible.
It's caffeine.
Like, I need to stop. This is ridiculous. And I don't drink that much coffee or caffeine.
Cup a day.
Yeah, but still. Anyways, continue. But you're right. It is an addiction.
Yeah, and then of course, alcohol. You bringing that in. That's just one of the most like traumatically bad drugs. But that's already known. It's already established. But so just imagine, right? If society chose, instead of having your coffee in the morning, you had a gram of shrooms.
Or a coca leaf.
You know what you'd be looking at?
Or a coca leaf.
You know what you'd be looking at, in my opinion? The new Renaissance. In my personal opinion, you would be looking at a civilization-changing element that you're throwing into this planet.
I'll tell you what, it might be a synchronistic thing, but maybe that's why you're doing this research and why we're at this point in the world with AI and the possibility of, automating all kinds of jobs and functionalities and this and that, to the point of what are we going to do with everybody that's not working? Like, maybe we need to sit around and have a renaissance and people need to get deep. Maybe it's aligning that this research is coming about.
Yeah, like as far as like automation, yeah, like I mean, it's obvious that pretty soon almost every job will be automated.
Yep.
So now you have an entire planet of people that don't really have anything to do. So what are you going to do?
Right.
You have, there has to be something there for people to have this very human experience. And the most human experience is a psychedelic experience, because it forces you. It forces you to look within, even when you don't want to look within. It forces you to look within.
True.
Absolutely.
True. We just talked about that on a recent show with somebody else about, I was saying the whole fact of like, the introspective and outrospective of, going inwards, as Nietzsche was saying in some of his philosophies of going in that labyrinth of the mind and finding the minotaur within and facing all these demons of our own selves and like figuring that out. And I'm like, I've always enjoyed that personally, just from a young age of being introspective. So it was always a fun game for me to try to figure out that pathway. But I definitely could understand how people, for the most part, usually want to close that door. Right. So like if the average bear is sitting there and you go, hey, are you an introspective person? They're probably like, no. Like they probably don't know what that means unless they really do it, right? And so if you take a psychedelic or a hallucinogen, something like that, where you're going to have that forced experience to kind of help you grow, right? Like you may not want to do this, but you're going to go through this, right? Like you're going to have that experience. And that's, again, like one of those things where I think people protect themselves a lot, which is fine, right? You got to make it through your day and this and that, but you also have to expand your awareness of what's going on and of yourself and outside of yourself, right? So like, think of it like music. I listen to new music going forwards, but I'm also still discovering old music that I've never even heard of, like songs from the 50s, 60s, whatever, right? I'm stretching each spectrum of that. So I try to keep that balance.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah. And it's like, but the thing is that, do you think everybody is ready for that? It's frightening. It takes courage. The entire psychedelic, I think so as well. I do not
I don't
think everyone is ready.
We need more research and education. Education is very underwhelming. I mean, honestly, I mean, there's young people, I've met some people and they are way more cautious and informed than we were. I'll tell you that right now. We learned a lot of things, the hard way, whereas they're really doing their due diligence before they jump into an experience. So I think, but finding the right information. So that's where the research comes in. You know what I mean? Like governments aren't going to legalize it until there's more research, period. We just don't have enough data, I don't think, for it to shift the public into a federal legalization.
Psychedelics?
No, just a legalization point.
It's legal in, what is it, Oregon?
Federally legal. We're not even federally legal with herb. And
I don't even care about that.
But I'm just saying.
I think once the pins start falling at this level, it doesn't matter.
Right, but
they can play that game, but
I don't know. What do you think, Zeus?
I think the genie's out of the bottle a little bit.
Man, you know what?
Because you're in Holland. I mean, it's pretty regular. You can buy mushrooms or used to be able to buy mushrooms in Amsterdam, right?
Bro, I am in Holland, man, where
it's a bit looser.
Yeah, like for example, like right now, after I get off this fantastic, podcast video experience that I love talking to you guys, by the way.
Appreciate it.
And you're the best at what you do. I'm just giving you guys props just for the heck of it. But I can say, like, I'm in Holland where I can basically order any drug that I want and have it delivered to me within 24 hours.
Wow.
Not only any drug, but I can also order the rarest psychedelics and have it delivered to me within 24 hours.
Wow.
I did not know
like
this.
2CB, and we're talking about like designers like that.
I'm talking about like 2CI, 2CP, 2CB, analogs of LSD,
LSA.
MXP, LSA, LS1, cathinones, novel psychedelic substances, research chemicals that haven't even been classified yet.
I don't even know what you're saying at this point.
Cathinones are basically a Ritalin, right, Zeus? A cation, like
cathinones,
caphedrin. On the street, it's called Cathy. It's bath salts, basically. Like fake Molly is cathedron, or Cathy is what they call it.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah.
Beyond
cathinones, it's mostly like a stimulant with a little bit of the MDMA euphoria, but it's like a heavy stimulant.
Yeah.
It's a sort of popular drug that people take out here in Belgium and in Germany and in Holland.
Yeah.
For doing all these like hardcore like partying until like, you know, like 8 a.m. stuff, you know.
And all of these are just legal.
I just knew about it from when I used to deliver pizzas.
Legal.
These dudes.
I did not know this.
I worked with.
I mean, I'm getting quite an education lesson. I had no idea. I mean, I've been to Amsterdam. It was years ago, and that was just like, oh, you can buy, you know, bud and mushrooms here at the time.
So it's pretty wild here. The way that these drugs are legal is because of the pioneering science that's happening in this country. So what's happening is that there's so many loopholes when it comes to scientific research, in the sense that perhaps you can't buy LSD, but you could buy an analog of LSD that is the same as LSD. It's just that there's like one step less in the metabolizing of the drug in your body, so that it actually hits you quicker, but it's the same exact experience. It's called, you know, so you buy analogs, you buy research chemicals that are functionally the same thing, but just one less step in the metabolizing of your body. And therefore it's like legal because it becomes a research drug. And you can do this with all these drugs, whether it's, you know, psychedelics, whether it's mushrooms, whether it's amphetamines.
That's insane.
Whether it's,
that's crazy. Yeah. But it opens up the box to be able to look at those and go, hey, what can we figure out?
I mean,
that's where you can do some work.
You guys are in like you're supercharging the effort compared to what's going on here, because there's so many FDA regulations and the government's got to get involved with every step of the. I mean.
Yeah, Netherlands, it's a pretty amazing place to be, man. I mean, we even have things like assisted deaths, where it's one of the few places on the planet where you have so much freedom here that you have the freedom to choose when and how you can die. Assisted death therapy,
like
which is
Kevorkian. That's all he was doing.
Sure.
That blew up in the media. That was, I mean, when we were kids.
Oh, he was
Dr. Death, and like they really,
yeah.
I mean, it's just like the guy was helping people just pass on gently.
Yeah,
nobody wants to
giving the power back to that person. I mean, think about it, man. Like if you're at your end of your life, there's not a lot of stuff you could do. You're sitting, you're trapped, you're you know, in the constraints of like devices, machines, nurses. To have the freedom to choose when you want it in your life is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful, liberating thing. And we have that here, you know, after you go through the process and everything. So it's a great sort of freeing place. There's a lot of things. Of course, bikes are cool. Everyone has bikes. And so yeah, man, it's so I know about what's happening in America. Obviously, that's like my home country. And yeah, man, it's a lot of federal stuff, man. And I, you know what? Honestly, guys, I don't pay too much to American politics anymore. And the reason why is because very little changes when it comes to legalization of psychedelics or research or it's always underfunded. It doesn't matter if it's Trump or Obama or Bush. Science is underfunded. That's it. And federally, nothing changes. Federally, not a single thing. States maybe change this, but federally, nothing changes. And the reason why it doesn't change is because the government says we don't have enough science. The reason why we don't have enough science is because it's historically underfunded.
Yeah, there's no money. Unless it's a military application and it's a better bomb that they're trying to build, then they got the money for that.
Right. Yeah.
Such horseshit.
That's it.
It's true.
So I get so mad and fired up about that kind of. It's just like, man, I see what's going on in Holland. I mean, that's Mecca right now for psychedelic research. Sounds like to me. I mean, if you're doing that, you need to be in Holland, bro.
Yeah, it sounds like that's where it's at.
Yeah. Very little places on this planet to research psychedelics on humans. It's here. It's Switzerland, and a couple places in Switzerland
or something.
Not even Israel anymore, believe it or not. Israel, I got to give props. Israel had a lot of great cannabis research. Lots of good cannabis research. But as far as psychedelics, no, there was going to be a conference in Israel in the next 2 weeks in Tel Aviv, but that was canceled for, obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Or in December. So yeah, man, it's here, it's Switzerland, and it's like Imperial College London in the UK. And then like once in a while, John Hopkins may have some stuff, but in America, it's all animal research. It's all how LSD, how psilocybin affects rats and mice and rodents, and we have to translate what happens in rodents to build to translate that into humans. But here we could just give a person DMT, awesome. LSD, look at their brain and say, this is what happens when a person does DMT in VR. Boom, research done.
Right. Well, and that's why I said earlier, it's such just a sad situation that we let go for so many decades because, oh God, don't open that door. Don't open that door. Like, I mean, Leary, again, they finally did get him in jail, and then he escaped because he, wrote the personality test to decide what part of the prison you got sent to. So he got like the lowest security because he literally wrote the test. So he promptly escaped after that. And then he went to Europe for a number of years. And yeah, I've watched a documentary on him called Timothy Leary's Dead. That was very, very interesting. If you ever want to watch a good documentary on him.
I want to watch this. Yeah.
It's really good.
It's on like Netflix? Or?
I think I rented it from a family video.
Is that the one with Ramdas when Leary's dying and Ramdas comes in and helps him with end of life therapy and stuff? Yeah,
it's pretty wild, man, because it gives you the full spectrum of Leary's path and kind of how wild it was when they were discovering it. Because it sounds like what you're talking. That's why I'm saying, like, it seems like we just have that. We're just starting. You're like even what you've discovered, we're just at the tip of it, right? Like there's so much to discover about it. It's just so exciting.
But they've learned from those mistakes too. And now these modern, like Zeus and all these people that are modern, they're looking back going, well, we don't want to do that again. Let's keep the car on the road here, folks. Let's keep this serious.
Yes. And the thing is that science on the face, science is a very rational, fundamental thing. It's quantified. We have data, yada, yada, yada. That's science. That's hard science.
Yep.
But there's also science. Science also exists in this social sphere where you can't perturb you can't poke the hornet's nest too much. And I think Timothy Leary poked the hornet's nest a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the science was great, the Good Friday experiment was fantastic, all this stuff was good, he was poking the hornet's nest way too much. And, of course, he paid for it with, all the stuff that happened to him.
Absolutely.
So yeah, man, but the thing is, it's a fine social game, dude. You like want to show people the like wonders of psychedelics, the science of psychedelics, but you don't want to say stuff like, hey, everyone take LSD.
Right.
Here's LSD. Let's throw it out to the crowd. No. Because
Right.
then you
Tune in,
become like a
turn out.
social danger, you know?
I mean,
yeah, and Timothy Leary was saying during the height of like Vietnam, correct me if I'm wrong, he was saying tune in, turn off, drop out. Like, no, it's all BS, which is a great thing. But at that time, dude, Nixon in Vietnam, it's like, no, man.
Yeah.
It was
Like,
a lot.
you know, it's
Too soon?
You basically brought the wrath on yourself, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no one in civilization, I don't think, since the Greeks and the Eleusinian mystery schools had maybe ever come across such a powerful force in civilization. You know what I mean? Like,
What do you mean, psychedelics?
all of a sudden, psychedelics come in. There's
Psychedelics
I mean,
have been
really, you're coming out
around
of the
for a long time.
you're coming out of the dark ages from like, you know, the 400s all the way through, and then, you know, is there stories about people taking mushrooms during the Renaissance period even? So you have swaths
People were
of
eating
time.
ergot and stuff that they were getting hallucinogenic effects
Sure.
from, you know, by mistake. And
But there were civilizations that were being changed, and all of a sudden, you know, it completely changed America overnight. I mean, when has that happened?
I don't know, McKenna's stoned ape theory.
Well, McKenna is part of that, though. That's what I'm saying.
But then you're
It's
going
a
back
modern-
way earlier than we're talking about here. If you talk
Yeah.
about the stoned ape theory, that goes back way.
Well,
Like that goes,
Yeah.
talks
That's the
about how we
beginning of
even got our intellect to begin with might have been, you know, basically from taking some
So-
enrichment enhancing, you know, fungi.
Okay, so so I'm not gonna get too deep into stone ape theory. I love stone ape theory. I love that idea. It's fantastic. But so stone ape theory, for people that don't know, it's this idea, I think pioneered by Terence McKenna, that says that much of the human brain development happened because our ancestors ate shrooms on the plains of Africa, and which helped them hunt and all this stuff, and that helped the evolutionary process and yada yada yada, which is a great theory, a great
Right.
idea. Here's the problem that I have with stone ape theory, is that if that's the case, then there also, at the same time when early humans were eating mushrooms, tripping, there were other animals also eating the same shrooms that had relatively the same brain that would have benefited from the same brain expansion. So why is it that just humans had this brain expansion and not like giraffes or not wildebeest or not rodents?
Or is there
or
something
not, you know.
about primates, maybe? Maybe it's something with primates because we have certain receptors in our brain that I don't know. I'm obviously.
Or just, I can't either speak to that. I mean, I get with what you're saying there as well. Of
Yeah,
why wouldn't there be an
I totally get
acceleration
that.
in some of these other species? Why humans specifically? Not sure. And again, like, do I like, you know, toe that line?
an interesting
I like
thing.
interesting thought provokes. Yeah. Like that, just of where it's like, I've never considered that, or a myth of Santa Claus and why people think that, you know, those reindeer are eating those magic mushrooms and those, you know, these stories and how some of these things come about. It's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense now. Like I could imagine somebody back in the day, like watching these reindeer and like, that looks like a good snack, and then dreaming up Santa, you know, I get it. I can see how some of these things come about. But yeah, the stoned ape theory, is it full on?
Man.
No, but it might help get the wheels turning. Maybe,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's a fun theory, man. It's a fun theory. And I mean, dude, I can give you an argument supporting it. I can give you an argument turning it away.
Sure.
You know, like, I mean, I could say also that, you know, the most evolutionarily recent part of our brain is the front part of our brain, medial prefrontal cortex. This is
Okay.
the most evolutionarily fresh part of our brain, essentially. And psychedelics, when you take psychedelics, most of the activity is in this part of the brain, the MPFC, medial prefrontal cortex. So perhaps what could happen over a long period of time is that an increased oxygenation in this part of the brain through long periods of time help this part of the brain develop to what it is right now, which is where we, you know, think about there's contemplation. There's all of these very high cognitive developments that other animals don't have. At least we think that other animals don't have. Our MPFC is very, very advanced. Just so happens that when we take, any drug, any psychedelic, at least this area of our brain is highly active, highly oxygenated, and is also having spinogenesis, neurogenesis. Our brain cells are literally restructuring stronger than before in this part of the brain. So yeah, that could be, evidence that shows that over a very long period of time, taking psychedelics over a very long period of time, there could be something there, for sure, definitely. But maybe not.
Zeus, is there anything else about specifically your new research that you want to touch on, or something that we may have gotten sidetracked? Of course, you're on the strained road, dude. There's lots of detours, and I want to make sure
we'll distract you in all kinds of ways.
Okay, can I please go on a very strange detour? Please?
Yes.
Floor's yours, brother.
Take the wheel.
Okay.
Zeus, take the wheel. Yeah.
Oh, it's automatic? Okay, cool. Automatic?
Yeah.
I can't drive stick. Actually, I can, but anyway, I can't. But I'm happy it's automatic. Okay, so I want to talk about something, and I want to get your opinion about this, because I want to hear what you have to say about this. So over the summer, there was a really dope paper that came out from this one scientist about this thing called integrated information theory. And what it is, it's a theory of consciousness. So that's like sort of the sort of big thing in science. It has been big thing in in sort of the human experience is trying to understand what is conscious, like what is consciousness, what is it to be conscious?
Absolutely.
What is conscious? That's just like ever since like Plato, all these guys, So this theory, and of course we have theories of like, oh, it has to be a carbon-based life form, it has to do this, has to do that. But this theory that came out over the summer said, well, actually, if you apply Occam's razor, law of parsimony, the same thing. The simplest explanation is usually the most correct.
Yep.
That actually, if you apply that to consciousness, then actually everything is conscious. The table your computer's on, the chair that you're in, your microphone, everything is conscious. And the reason why is because everything on a long enough time frame would have feedback over something else. So for example, we look at things like communication, like I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. That's feedback. I'm hearing what you say and I'm responding. You're hearing what I say and you're responding. That's feedback.
Yep.
That's feedback. And that right there is an element of conscious. I'm conscious enough to hear what you say. You're conscious enough to listen to me, all this stuff. Okay. And they say that this sort of feedback is this fundamental aspect of something being conscious. So, okay, if you put your phone on a sofa and then you pick it up, it's going to have a little bit of an indent. That is feedback. If you blow and the air particles interact with a book and a page flops over, that's feedback. So the easiest explanation is that no, all of these lofty ways to exclude consciousness that is human crafted, probably based on ego, probably based on faulty science, probably based on our own humans are superior stuff. No. That fails the Occam razor test. The sort of restrictions that we're placing on consciousness fails this Occam razor test. And in actuality, the idea that everything is conscious is a way easier explanation. Now, when this paper came out, people were like, yo, this is wild stuff. And just hearing it sounds wild, right? So
Yeah,
what happened?
Yeah,
It sounds esoteric. You know, it sounds esoteric. It sounds woo-woo. I mean, that's the Native American beliefs.
It sounds like double speech almost.
The
where
water.
I'm like, what are you saying?
The boulders are alive. You know, the sand, the earth, like all of these things. The whole universe is conscious to them.
Yeah.
You know, that's the great spirit, and it's all alive.
Well, but this thing is not the great spirit, this chair necessarily.
Hey,
you know what I mean? Like,
I feel you.
That's why I'm interested to hear how this plays out, because I'm with you.
So what happened after this paper? It's wild. It's wild. So what happened after this paper came out? It blew minds. It shocked the world. It happened like, I think, June, maybe before. And it came out. Everyone was like, yo, this is wild stuff. And it was a theory. It's a theory about consciousness. And about 2 weeks later, a rebuttal paper came out, signed by I think 80 different scientists, some ridiculous amount. And it was calling that theory pseudoscience, that it was fake. But the thing is, if you look at their rebuttal, one of the reasons why they had this very intense sort of beef with this other paper is that if we classify everything as being conscious, then this is going to be a wild twist. Then politicians would use that to hone in on the abortion debate.
I wasn't expecting to go there. But
exactly.
I mean,
so
yes.
I know. So they.
Oh, Jesus!
Wow.
I know, because they would think that politicians would use this paper to show that. Well,
sure,
actually,
and that's the only wow. It's always go.
Yes.
It's like, dude, that's science. We have to keep. I don't want to go back and talk about the last 3 years ago what happened on this planet, but it's like even science went cuckoo. It's like nothing was really based on scientific work and research, and you know, it's a lot of like, well, we think, you know, anymore. It's like when I was a kid, there were like scientists that they were respected. They were, you know, if you wrote a scientific paper, you got a Nobel Peace Prize, or
maybe they were just more confident. Maybe they were better at, who knows? That's all I can say is
science
because
is the last
I don't know
bastion of sanity for crying out loud.
Exactly.
There's been people falling asleep at the wheels globally in certain situations here recently, right? Like we've seen just some wild events happen where you're like, how could that happen? How does this happen? We had it happen here. You know, you got a train derailment of toxic chemicals, whatever it is. You're like, how? How does this happen? And it's like the people that you think are actually doing their jobs are Will Ferrell auditioning for SNL, playing with cat balls as the CEO, and that got him his start because like that's what he was doing as his bit. Because it's like, dude, you might have somebody in this office, they're not doing anything, but they're you know, taking care of nuclear energy or something. I don't know, like. I think we're at that stage of a world where we got to get serious again. Like we lost our ability to really like hold certain positions or research or things of importance as important. Like nothing's important to people anymore. It's just everything's a quick hit. Social media. There's a new headline of sensationalism. It doesn't matter. It's just like people are so overwhelmed they don't care anymore.
Well, you hear a lot of "I know." When you hear that, I know better. I know this to be. It's like, well, isn't that what science is supposed to expand and disprove, like your idea, and you can build upon it. It's not like this is it. There's no other room for debate. There's so much of that right now.
Yeah. Look, man, I agree, man. And you know, it's such, like I think people tend to tend to believe, how can I say this? People tend to go with what makes them feel better over what is actual fact, or what is, the most factually reasoned thing. And for example, this whole integrated information theory, it's a theory about consciousness, dude. Every single theory about consciousness is a wacky theory. I'm sorry, bro. This is from a scientist. They're all wacky stuff. I mean, yeah, it could be true. It's hard to disprove. But for these scientists to go after this one theory because of what could happen politically, like,
ridiculous.
Ridiculous, man. Ridiculous, dude.
In the 21st century, like this is why we don't have flying cars. God damn it!
You're right.
This is why
we can't have nice things.
Jet backpacks.
Mildred, this is why we can't have nice things. Because, we should be so much further because of all.
This is probably why we are aliens from the future and the aliens are us. And we're trying to tell ourselves how to not screw up the world and not blow ourselves up. And like, if we just get on board with chilling out and automating stuff and everybody can just get to a higher consciousness, we can be flying UFOs to other planets too at some point.
Yeah.
I really do believe, like, out of all, this is just a small segue, out of all of the theories on that, like, that's probably one of the most entertaining to me is, like, it is us. Like, we got there, but it's just, like, not by much, right? Like, and we're like, oh, God, we better figure out how to, like, ensure that we get here. Because, like, I don't know.
I think that, like, I think that just imagine there was some sort of, if there was some sort of galactic council of different civilizations out there that sort of got together, or they were like the
Republic,
Galactic Union, the Republic, like that. I don't think we would pass the test of joining this galactic union.
Not yet.
Right now.
We haven't evolved consciously. We haven't.
I agree.
Gone interstellar travel. We don't have. I think
we
you have to be able to
like
achieve
wars.
At least
we have like resources. We can't. Sorry, you're gone.
No, go ahead.
Like I'm saying, we have an abundance of resources, yet people are like they're like malnourished. Like it's we wouldn't pass the test of having this sort of unified human front of like, yes, we're all humans. Yes, we're all ready to join this council. No, it's we have we don't have that sort of cohesion of we are all one, which psychedelics brings us to that point of we're all one, but we don't have this cohesion in society. We're fighting, we're killing, we're doing very brutal stuff, in which if there is a galactic council, I'm sure they're looking at us saying, yeah, they're still, level 1 planet. They're still killing. They're still killing. We can't let them join. We can't let them do it,
They're texting each other SMH. These Earthlings, SMH.
I mean,
look at these fools. What are they doing?
I mean, but it also makes you wonder too on that level. Like, okay, so then if we're going to say that, do we presuppose if there are extraterrestrial, non-human intelligences out there, are they all benevolent then? Like, just because they got to that point and they got to that advancement, what if they started off and they already were so much more smart or advanced or this or that they didn't also develop the morality and capacity to be cohesive as a species wars. And go, hey, we're just people across this giant planet, and that's what we have to get to first. And we still haven't gotten there in the entire history of humanity of realizing like there's different space on this globe, but we're the same species across the globe, like humans.
You got to conquer wars and battling with each, because you can't, because one of two things is going to happen. on your planet, okay? It's either a natural disaster, a meteor, a comet, a giant supervolcano can take out your civilization. Guess what else can take out? You can't evolve any further once your supervolcano has blown or once that giant meteor comes in.
Yeah.
Or the other situation is if you blow yourselves the hell up in a massive thermonuclear war. That's another civilization ender. So in order to get to that point, bro, you got to have so many thousands of years of consciousness evolution. You got to get through that barrier before you evolve to stop fighting first.
Can I tell you my take on that?
That's where we're screwed.
This is the only way. This is one of the things I thought about a long time was like, just our brief life, right? Maybe we hit 100 like Kissinger did, right? Or maybe we hit 99 like the other gentleman the other day from Berkshire Hathaway. Got some people that were hanging in there for, long time. Maybe I'll get there. But all of the information that I'm gathering and trying to get to that next stage, I'll get to 70, 80, or 90 and have that amount of information. And then the next generation comes along and you have to program them or give them the information and get them to figure it out. Like what I'm saying is there's so much information, though. How do we get to that where we can stand on the shoulders of those giants? And this is where I'll say, I think the way they're going to try to do it is the way that they're doing it now with the implants of, hey, we're going to put this in your brain and we're going to just give you all of the volumes of the encyclopedias and dictionaries and this and that. We're going to preload you, bootstrap you with all the history of humanity and language and math and this and that. Now go, right? We're jumping off that because we're not building a jetliner or a SR-71 from the ground up every time, right? They're using concepts and not reinventing the wheel so much. We as a species have to reinvent the wheel every time. And the amount of that brain to be able to soak up that information and get to a higher level, you see it speeding up now. I think kids with tablets and pads and this and that and whatever, they're, a detriment. It's a double-edged sword, but it also does expose to the fact that kids are way more capable in some instances than we ever give them credit for. Like watch the little ultimate food chefs. They'll go out there and make a 5-course dinner that like these chefs are like, I'd hire you in my kitchen.
That's true. That's true.
Right? So we got to get to that point where they're not starting going A, B, C. They just come preloaded with, hey, all right. They'll come out like Stewie Griffin.
Hopefully not that like diabolical though.
No, not that diabolical, but that is one of the ways that I think about it is, okay, well, you want to get further as a species, and our problems seem to stem from the fact that we have to live through this life to figure out the ins and outs of it by the time we get old enough to hopefully learn from mistakes or gather that information. And so we're kind of in this cyclical loop of repeat. We're just, we're not thinking long term.
Oh God.
As a species, in my mind, we don't think as long term as, because that's where I think we should be further than we are now, because we've been short-sighted.
Okay. I have a different take on, I love your take.
Sure.
I love your take. My take, I have a different take on this. So you have to look at it's okay. Humans like us, right?
Yep.
We are sort of this individual person. You're that person. I'm this person. But we fail to realize that we're all sort of part of this system called Earth.
Yep.
Earth is what we are. All the energy is in Earth. Like we came from the Earth, all this stuff, right? So we were produced by the Earth. Animals have a role in this ecosystem, this sort of cycle, and it sort of sustains the planet and everything. So evolutionarily, why are humans here? Why? Because it seems like for the Earth to make humans is a huge detriment to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like for us to exist is a huge detriment for the survival of Earth, the person who the sort of thing that we came from, So then you have to ask, okay, why would the Earth let us evolve into humans? Like why? What's that point? Why? What's the point of humans? And then I'm thinking, all right, well, humans can do one thing that other animals can't. We can make things like synthetic texture, synthetic alloys, synthetic things that the earth can't. And of course, these synthetic things like plastic, like alloys, turn into things like technology, like toasters, like computers. The earth can't. In trash and trash.
Turns
exactly.
into
the
trash too.
Turns into trash, exactly,
Yeah.
which hurts the earth. Yeah. So you're asking yourself, like, why would the earth intentionally, let like evolutionarily have something to eventually kill it? But then you're like, okay, well, perhaps the end game on Earth isn't for the Earth to develop humans. No. Perhaps the end game for the Earth is for Earth to develop humans so that humans can develop AI that fundamentally works to essentially correct the mistakes of humans, to ensure that Earth's survival is sustained. Perhaps AI, and I'm not talking about killing off all humans. This is not like a Terminator 2 thing.
Right.
I'm talking about I'm talking about perhaps us developing synthetic alloys and turns into AI, turns into robots, turns into all these different collectors and cleaning attributes. Perhaps it's a sort of immune response that the Earth has, because the Earth's like, oh damn, these humans are messing up like myself. Therefore, I'm gonna give, I will allow them to build alloys and to fix stuff. So maybe it's like a hyper immune response, and which is the reason why AI and all this stuff exists, to correct the mistake of humans existing on the planet, or to sustain, to help Earth's survival. That's how I see it from a very evolutionary perspective, but I could be wrong.
No, I
I
enjoy that one as well.
Yeah, makes me think of a lot, especially with, if AI decides that we're no longer viable to have around and we're gone, then we've created AI, which comes full circle.
I think Philip K. Dick said we're the reproductive organs of AI.
Yeah.
Humanity.
Wow.
Humanity is
that is a beautiful, beautiful sentence right there.
Isn't that wild?
We're the cocoon, almost.
It's true, yeah. Like, it's true. And then but the thing is, even AI is still part of evolutionary biology.
Right. Right.
It is. That's something that we don't consider, but it is.
Right. Because we make stuff. We invent things.
Yes,
we evolve things. We add on to, the iPhone 16 is going to come out. The Samsung Galaxy S20 is coming out. We make things. That's what we do.
I know, but we really are like with AI. It sounds like, I'm not trying to be the like fear and conspiracy guy on that, but like, dude, you can like watch the guy that's the ping pong champion play the robot AI arm ping pong arm, and you're not going to win. Doesn't matter what serve he serves it. He can give it his most special serve where he's like baffled because he can't get it past this robot arm that's like pip pop, pip pop, pop. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, you might be able to outrun a police officer. I can't outrun a robot AI dog that's coming after me that doesn't get tired, that can leap a fence, that's 20 feet taller. A robot drone that can cut, we cannot outrun that. So it's one of those where, like, I'm all about using technology until we get to a point where we might paint ourselves into a corner and really.
Well, I don't know.
It could get interesting. There's a whole philosophical tendencies already surrounding AI, right? Like, there are different thought processes of like, well, what if AI knew we could create it and bring it about and we did it, and then by the time we do bring it about and there's been all this suffering, and then it decides that, we're the actual, like, there's all these different scenarios where it's like, it does make you kind of concerned, like, how much does it take? And we make enough sci-fi movies about AI replacing humans or like wiping them out or going on a bender and just like, destroying everybody. I don't want to be that person because I'd like to think that I could have the spaceship flying across the cosmos with my AI assistant, traveling to my home planet. And when I mean my home planet, it's my home is the whole planet, like Justin's planet.
Well, you saw what Elon just said in that controversial interview with the New York Times that just blew up the last couple of days when they asked him about at OpenAI. They removed the CEO, they brought him back.
OpenAI went.
And he thought, and what he said on this interview 2 days ago was he feared that they had discovered something not good.
Well, there's
with their AI algorithm or their format or whatever. They had found something that was dangerous potentially.
They're looking for self-awareness, basically, like sentience within AI.
He said 3 years until I didn't think it would be that quick, but with I guess the jumps that they're making right now, it's pretty ridiculous.
Big. Yeah, I could see it. Thoughts on that, Zeus?
Yeah. Yes, I have thoughts on this. I think the idea, okay, we believe that one day AI is just going to be like self-aware, right? And we're going to, oh my gosh. The thing is, we don't even understand human awareness. So, like, cognitively, we don't really fully understand the idea of humans being aware. So we wouldn't even, if AI was aware, we wouldn't even be able to identify it.
Mm.
Heck, for all we know, like I said, a toaster could be aware. Like the thing is so for us to identify aware. So the way we see consciousness in science, at least, is there's obviously like death, which is like the opposite of consciousness, but that's a very extreme case, but the lowest level of consciousness that we have recorded is like a person that's like in like a coma. That's a comatose person or a person that's like locked in is the lowest level of consciousness. In the brain, the activity, the cognitive functioning, the neuromechanical processes, that's the lowest level. Now, the highest level, and it's going to sound wild, is a person having a very intense psychedelic trip.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because all of these systems, all of these areas, all of these circuits that had well-established locations, that had well-established congruency, all of a sudden operate in such a high level that we call it chaos because it's so complex that we are not sophisticated enough to understand how it operates. There's a scientist named Thomas Varley who wrote a paper that said, actually, when we take a high amount of psychedelics, that the brain, the energy used in the brain it's pushed to a point of criticality is what it's called. But the point of criticality, even in this very high point of criticality, the energy becomes fractal. The brain activity becomes fractal. That's the highest point of consciousness, is this very complex, chaotic, almost fractal arrangement of the brain. And of course, the opposite is the coma. So the fact that it's going to a fractal arrangement tells us something about the fundamental nature of reality. There are fractals in Earth, there's fractals in leaves, there's fractals in seashells, and of course, when you take DMT, there's lots of fractals. So, and we're getting a little bit, but I'm going to bring it bring it.
You're good.
Around.
You're good. I'm in.
So, what can we say about DMT that's different than other psychedelics? Of course, they're it's a 5-HT receptor agonist. That means that it's a serotonin agonist. It operates on serotonin receptors. Okay. So is LSD. So is MDMA.
Yeah.
But you have very distinct trips. You have an LSD trip, which is fine. You have a shroom trip, but then you have a DMT trip, which is like infinite fractals in front of you, things that are hyper real, hyper complex, mind changing. Now, DMT is also a sigma 1 agonist. So that we have receptors in our brain called sigma 1. And DMT activates those. I think it's the only psychedelic that's a sigma 1 agonist. But what is sigma 1? Now, here's where it gets wild. There was a study that came from the University of Hungary by this person named, it's a Hungarian name. I apologize for butchering it. It's Balas. Anyways, a fantastic paper came out. They found that DMT is a sigma 1 agonist, but they found that DMT has a very interesting property that it reduces it reduces the damage the brain takes when there's a lack of oxygen. So essentially what that means is that it becomes a protective element for this state of being called ischemic, which is like when a person's having a stroke or when there's a lack of oxygen to the brain. It forms a protection. This DMT, it forms protection around brain cells, essentially, to protect it from a lack of oxygen. So perhaps when we do DMT, when we're not having a very ischemic element where we're sort of cognitively fine, we're not having a stroke, or we're not like, whatever, we're giving ourselves, our brain, an abundance of survivability. And in this abundance of survivability, it's expressed with fractals, with faces, with conversations of almost like our brain processes an abundance of survivability in a fractal way. Why that is, I don't know. I don't know why fractals appear to equate an abundance of survivability in the DMT experience, or perhaps in other, elements of reality. But that's the sort of conclusion.
Oh, I think you hit your mic, Zeus. I think you tapped your.
Yo.
There you go.
Got excited.
Sorry. But yeah, I got too excited. I got too excited. But yeah, so yeah. But why that is, I don't know. But it is with the DMT experience, it is.
But you always hear the universe is fractal. It's made up of dodecahedrons. It's made up of these sacred geometry, going back to the Hermetica and all of these principles of this high mathematical geometric nature of the universe. Whether it's fractals, it's encoded into whether it's the pyramids and these ancient sites.
Yeah.
There is something about the fractal nature of those experiences that it's just like, it's so alien.
I wondered if it just had like a fractal structure in its own makeup of DMT, like in its crystalline structure. Like, does it have like some kind of like built into it? Like that's part of it.
And to be honest with you, I'm a neuroscientist. I'm not a chemist.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know that, but that would be interesting to find out for sure.
That's where it's
what
like,
is that?
Yeah. Cross, disciplinary.
Multidisciplinary.
Yeah.
I don't know why I always have struggles saying that word.
multidisciplinary.
Yeah. I always
It's like a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a long one.
Yeah.
Well, that's so like interesting, man. Like you,
dude,
you
we're
never,
so proud of you. We're so happy for you. I mean, you are
you never
really
bore me.
diving into, I think, what people wish they were doing with psychedelic research. You know what I mean? Like you and all of the people you're working with. Shout out to everybody from, Maastricht and everybody you're working with. Much love. We would love to chat with anybody that would be willing to chat with us, because
people our way.
Because there's the study that's going on in UC San Diego.
Don't know.
There's a current study right now. Can't remember who was telling us about that, but they're like, yeah, you go out there and fly and be a part of the study. But there's things happening here in the U.S., but man,
not like
you
over
guys
there.
feel like it's the tip of the spear.
Yeah, dude. Man, yeah, like, well, we're allowed to do some wild stuff. Like, for example, we have this one study going on by Natasha Basin, where we're looking at brain synchronizations. When a couple, like a person that has been in a relationship with somebody, like a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. If your relationship, we're giving people a psychedelic, and we're hooking up their brains and looking for synchronizations. Why? Just to see what happens. We aren't trying to like make a drug or see how it decreases depression. It's just purely science. Like, are there brain synchronizations when a couple takes a psychedelic and their brains are essentially hooked up with the machine? We're doing that. Like, we're doing that right now.
That's awesome.
That stuff I would be really interested to see too when it comes out. That research. So I'm sure it's got to be fun.
It's pretty cool, man. I can't tell you what we're seeing right now, but we're seeing some amazing stuff, dude.
I believe it,
man. It's just, I mean, you're doing it. You're in deep, as they say.
Yeah.
Bro, I could be doing it, but without like guys like you, man, especially you guys, you're giving me the platform to talk to people that I wouldn't actually talk to. Like, I mean, it's incredible that you're giving me this platform, bro. Like, I love that I'm able to connect with people that I would probably get along with, but I don't have the means to travel to Ohio or wherever and talk to these people. So anyone that's watching this that was entertained, man, I'm so happy to connect with you, and I really appreciate that all of you are interested in research, my research, psychedelic research. I'm honored and I'm thrilled, and I gotta say that the energy you give inspires me in the lab every single day. All the comments, you guys, there's some trolls, but the trolls are going to be trolls.
Yeah.
But the people that like want to convey a message of positivity, one single message of continue what you're doing, Zeus, or go on, or don't stop. Bro, I cannot tell you how much that resonates with me. Whenever I'm in the lab by myself and I'm thinking, I have this array of like optos set up, and I'm like, man, is this all worth it? Like, is it? And then I read a message and I'm like,
it is,
bro. Of course I'm going to keep on going. Of course it's worth it. So thank you so much for everybody to give me. I love that. I love the energy. I love the love that you guys give me.
Man, it's
we need people like you.
It's all our honor because
we need it.
I'm like, somebody needs to figure this out. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be me.
Look, I'll say it this way.
I'm not going to figure it out, but
I'll put it this way.
I will support the people that are.
It's almost like anymore, like whatever you want. You can, is that on Amazon? Is that on Google? Can I find this? Is it built or made or this or that, right? Like, had to take a little bit of sifting through to find you, right? But now that we've like connected with you, it's like, like you're the type of person we've been looking to talk to, or at least me personally even, right? Like, I want to know this, and by extension, sorry audience, but you're going to have to hear it too. And we hope you enjoy it, because we're thoroughly entertained and mind blown every time that we sit down and talk with you. And it's just like what you're telling us in the research that you guys found. We can detect areas. We know you're seeing a face right now. Oh, you're tripping in black and white. You're like, what? Like, and eventually, if you can get to a
That
point, you're
shit's
just putting that helmet on
crazy.
and somebody's walking around and they're like, they got a little sign or a signal saying, hey, this is what they're feeling like right now. This is where they're at. You know, you could identify, hey, go help that person. We can tell clearly, like, they need hands.
You're
like,
seeing some shit.
yeah, that's so wild. So kudos to you. Keep doing what
Yeah.
you're doing. Like, I can't wait to talk to you again.
Nothing but love and support. Like, if you ever need anything, man,
Hit us up.
Hit us up. Any time you want to come on and talk about your research, the door is always open.
Yep.
Again, as always, in our first episode with you was very popular.
It was so much fun.
People were loving it and sharing it, and there was engagement, and it was, I got yelled at in the comments. That's okay. It's okay. I don't take it personal.
Hey, man, I can tell people, if you tell me I talk too much, I'll say, I know.
The guy in the blue shirt needs to sit down and shut up and let him talk, and you need to take some mushrooms, sir.
Let yellow shirt guy talk.
Yeah, he's like, you need to take some mushrooms. I'm like, bro, you're telling me, okay. We got a good kick out.
It was so good.
So I tried to let you talk more this time, Zeus.
Thank you.
Thank you out there, YouTube commenter.
Dude. We love it. We love it.
Yeah, but always a good time, man. You're just a good hang. This has been fun. We always have laughs.
We're gonna make it in real life sometime, though.
Oh,
we're gonna hang out in real life
for sure.
Lost
Lands. Yeah.
Lost Lands 2024.
Bro,
Zeus
you're coming
Tipado is
out.
coming your way.
That would be so much fun.
Zeus, let everybody know where we can find you, where they can connect, follow you, look at your research, all those things.
Yeah, man. So you can follow me on X, is what it's called now, at Tipado, Tipado. That's my handle on X. You can also follow me on Instagram and at Tipado. That's my handle on Instagram. You can also follow me on TikTok. My handle is Tipado. And if you want to look at all of my research, all of the papers that I've written, all of my everything that I've done about psychedelics, you can find me on Tipado.com, which is my last name. It's easy. So it's all there, guys.
Love it, love it, love it. Wow. Another mind bender with Zeus Tipado. Zeus, don't go anywhere. We really want to, from the bottom of our hearts and our audience, thank you so much for coming back on the Strange Road.
You're awesome.
Returning champ.
For all of you
Zeus
that don't
Tipado.
know, too, like the time difference for him.
Yeah.
He's way ahead of us. So this,
Yeah.
he's making some sacrifices to do this because he's obviously doing a lot of work in the lab, too. So
That's right.
kudos, man. We appreciate the hell out of you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, man. It's late here. I have an early morning tomorrow, but it's worth it, and I love it. It's fantastic.
Awesome, man. Well, we're going to outro the show. Don't go anywhere. We're going to give you a proper goodbye. Zeus Tipado, everybody.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Freaking amazing.
Bro, I'll tell you what. We're going to make this a quick outro because my cup is full, as they
Spinning?
say.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been on a real... We got
deep on this one.
We've been getting deep. My brain has just dug deep.
Well, he makes you think the whole time.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't think in our other episode, but like it's a different thought. It's a different deep grind of thinking about like, what does that actually mean? And what does that actually, how does that, and just when we're talking about perception and how are we doing it? And it gets weird.
I have my weird theories, but I am by no means smart enough to be a neuroscientist or psychedelic researcher.
Hey.
But I have some intuitions that I like exploring with people like Zeus that are open-minded and actually know what they're talking about in terms of how the brain really works, not just my stoner theories.
Right.
But guys, all
Check
of you
his
out
stuff
there,
out.
go. All the links are in the description. At Tipado, you heard him. You can wherever you can find Zeus. Please do reach out, and thank you to everybody in the chat, everybody hanging out with us tonight. You guys rule. Go follow Necromechanimal. He's doing all the dope artwork for the show. You can follow us at The Strange Road on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Go check out the Facebook group. Go check out the merch store.
Yeah.
TheStrangeRoadMerchStore.com, or sorry, TheStrangeRoadMerch.com.
Yep.
Please like, subscribe, and share. You got to hit that notification bell there in YouTube, man. You're not going to be able to find us.
You're never going to know when this is happening.
You're never going to know when this is happening and when this gets released or the next episode gets released. So
we'll keep you guessing.
You can subscribe, but until you hit that notification bell, you're just not going to know what's going on. So we would love everybody to write us a review, shout us out in Spotify or Apple. We've been doing really, really well. Our Spotify audience has grown so much in the last year, and all of the listeners. So we appreciate all of you listening. I mean, we have countries. Canada, very active.
We're in like 40
Australia,
countries.
New Zealand, Japan,
UK,
Mexico, UK, South Africa. So all of you out there listening and watching, all over Europe, wherever you're at.
Thank you.
Appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you. We are signing out. I'm Mikey. This is Bub. Love, peace, and chicken grease.
Later, everybody.